You are listening to Mobility Marvels, the CIVITAS podcast. CIVITAS is a European Union initiative working with cities to make sustainable mobility a reality for all. I am Adrienne Kotler, and this is the third episode of Season 2 of Mobility Marvels. In today's episode, you will hear about how the cities of Madrid and Lucca engaged in CIVITAS projects to foster collaboration and bring sustainable mobility to peripheral neighborhoods outside of the city centers. The SUMP Plus project worked with 6 cities to get their Sustainable Urban Mobility Plans, or SUMPs, from plans to implemented solutions. The project used co-creation city labs to test methods to bridge that SUMP implementation gap. For its part, the Momentum project developed a set of data analysis methods, transport models, and planning support tools, and brought all of these together into a comprehensive decision support tool to help cities better exploit the full potential of these emerging mobility solutions. What have these projects taught us about how to foster collaboration for sustainable mobility, especially with hard-to-reach groups? How can we ensure that sustainable mobility goes beyond the inner city and that sustainable options are readily available in city peripheries? To answer these questions and others, we have with us today Valentina Della Lena and Pamela Salvatore from the city of Lucca, who will speak to Lucca's work in SUMP Plus and will look ahead to the next steps for sustainable mobility in their city. And we are joined by Javier Burrieza and Oliva García, who work at Nomon, a Madrid-based organization specialized in mobility data analytics, who formed a core part of Madrid's Momentum project team. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. I mentioned in my introduction that through SUMP Plus and Momentum, you have tested solutions to improve sustainable mobility in your cities. The details of your work are already outlined on the CIVITAS website and will be featured in an upcoming CIVITAS publication. But for those who have not yet checked out those resources, I invite one speaker from each city to please provide our listeners with just a very brief summary of the measures that you've rolled out in the context of SUMP Plus and Momentum. So why don't we start with Lucca and with its work in SUMP Plus?
Hello, everybody. My name is Valentina Della Lena. I work in the mobility office of the city of Lucca, and in the SUMP Plus project, I participated as a project specialist. Our objective in the SUMP Plus project was we were one of the 6 city laboratories, and our objective was the integration of the SUMP and SALP at city level and integration of this with a SUMP at provincial level. So with all the neighboring municipalities and the province of Lucca, that is a higher level of institution. And to reach this objective, we needed to engage several stakeholders. So citizens, logistics operators, and retailers, and also the neighboring municipalities, and also other offices of our municipality.
Before I move on to ask Madrid, just for those of our listeners who don't know, could you define the 2 acronyms that you use, so SALP and SUMP?
SUMP is Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan. That is a plan to organize and to foster mobility. And SALP is a Sustainable Urban Logistics Plan.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So now what about Madrid? What did you roll out as part of Momentum?
Yeah, hello, I'm Oliva García. I'm the responsible of the research and development area of Nomon, and I was acting as a technical supervisor of this Madrid case study. So basically, the idea was to test the potential of the tools developed in the Momentum project to support the deployment of new shared mobility services in areas where they were not deployed, especially outside the city center. So to implement these tools, we also generate or constitute a community of practice. This community of practice was integrated by either services provider, shared mobility services provider, and final users, people from the neighborhood where we tested this deployment. And the experiment basically consisted in testing different scenarios of deployments of these services, a more compact one, a more spread one, and investigating where was a different impact that the indicators that will bring about the service, the different deployment strategies in terms of travel time, in terms of people left out of the service, etc. So this is all in all how it was implemented in Madrid.
Great. Thank you so much. These are, perfect introductions to launch us into talking about our first overarching topic of conversation, which is fostering collaboration. So perhaps I will pass it over first to Lucca. One of the things that I know that you worked on was convening these logistics roundtables that brought together all sorts of logistics stakeholders, freight operators, and trade associations. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about how that came about and why it was important for you to take on these kinds of roundtables.
Lucca has a long tradition of logistics roundtable, and it has been a tool for discussion for many years, also before the SAMPLAS project. And during the SAMPLAS project, we decided to implement it because it's a very useful moment of discussion. And so the people at the table were operators, were representatives from the municipality, and were trade associations. And the difficulty was to find a balance between the need of many different stakeholders. And we had a great satisfaction in finding a table where we could discuss about solutions, and also some proposals came out from the roundtables that the municipality, and these proposals are under the attention of the municipality and of the new board that was elected a few months ago. We were asked to widen the time windows. The logistics operators can enter the city center to deliver. Also, they proposed to put some lockers outside the walls. Lucca is surrounded by medieval walls. And so to put some lockers outside the walls so that people can go there and catch their parcels without the need to enter. And another proposal is the reopening of a urban consolidation center to be located outside the city center, but not too far from the city center. It's surely a challenge because we had to talk with different kind of operators, because some of them have already an electric fleet to deliver with, and some of them have all vehicles. So we try to make them propose some new ideas to find a balance between the need of the city and the need of the operators.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about not only the challenges of sharing data, but also just the challenges of accommodating private sector companies that are probably at very different stages of sustainable mobility and development, and with different visions. I propose that we shift now to talk a little bit more about what is going on in Madrid with fostering collaboration. You already mentioned a little bit about these communities of practice, let's say, that were established as part of Momentum. And my understanding is that they were made up of really, really diverse groups, including public authorities, mobility operators, community associations, local representatives. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about how you got such diverse groups to sort of understand each other, speak the same language, and be able to cooperate in good faith.
Yeah, I can pick on this one. I'm Javier. I was supporting Oliva from the Nomon team and organizing this and managing this community of practice in Madrid. Thank you for the question, Adriana. I think it was a very interesting process. Actually, the community of practice was at the core of the concept of the Momentum project, because we wanted to test how analytical tools could help improve our participatory planning processes. So this aspect of engaging different citizens and different companies and authorities was essential. As you mentioned, we gathered not only public entities and private entities, but also citizens. We engaged, for example, citizen cyclist associations, also different neighborhood communities from the district. We were conducting the experiment. In terms of what actually facilitated the conversation, I would say that the communities of practice were very successful in showing how data on the baseline situation and insights from modeling can actually help the different stakeholders to understand how every decision was or would affect the remaining stakeholders. Valentina from Lucca mentioned before that it is sometimes very difficult to align all the needs of all the stakeholders, and this happens many times because people find difficult to understand what are the needs of others, of other organizations, of other entities. Having data on indicators on what will be the impact of these shared mobility solutions in different population groups and for different stakeholders meant a lot for this process.
Once you had everyone on the same page, what came out of the communities of practice? Can you tell us a bit more about what it led to and what this collaboration sort of has at least accomplished up to now?
I can say that one aspect that was very positive from this collaboration is that we found that mobility operators are now more prone to share their data with the city and with citizens. What I found during these discussions is that mobility operators had the opportunity to understand how this data that is not only helping the common good through better sustainable mobility planning, but also how the data can be used by cities to lay out more fair regulations for themselves that could encourage a more fair competition among these new operators. So something I find very interesting from this conversation we're having today is that shared mobility, which is the thing we focused on in Madrid, and logistics share similar problems sometimes, specifically regarding data. And as we discussed, this kind of collaboration between the public and the private sector hopefully is fostering data sharing and then better planning.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've already mentioned a little bit about looking beyond the city center proper in Lucca with, things like lockers and potentially consolidation centers. But my understanding is that in Sump Plus, you also convene city forums with completely different municipalities as well, neighboring municipalities and administrators from all sorts of different parties. And I think that's very impressive. We live in times where my impression is that basically across the board, political polarization is a problem. And the fact that you were able to bring people together from different parties, different municipalities in one location is really quite impressive. And I'm wondering if you can share a bit about what you learned from that experience and also how you did it.
Well, the first thing to say is that Lucca is the capital of the province of Lucca, and Lucca is the main, the greatest city in the plain of Lucca. The plain of Lucca is a place with some different municipalities, and it is a geographical situation that it is like a valley. And due to this situation, there is very often a problem of air quality and of exceedance of PM10 values. So for this reason, the municipalities of the plain, there are 6 cities, have quite often cooperated to find solution to this problem of air quality. What we try to do in the Sump Plus project with the city forums, that is a tool proposed us by a technical partner, was to put all these municipalities at the same table to discuss about mobility and logistics issues. And so we try to develop a capacity building and enhancement for the achievement of common objectives. We try to push all these people, also from different political parties, to discuss the draft of a provincial SAMP that has been started many years ago, but then abandoned. And then we wanted to try to work on it again. And this was our great success, to put all these municipalities and the political representative at the same table to try to draft this document again. And now we succeeded in find an agreement among these municipalities for the need to subscribe a provincial SAMP. And now all the cities are working on a provincial territorial coordination plan.
You know, when I'm thinking about the sheer size of Madrid in comparison, I actually can imagine that probably in terms of diversity of parties, perspectives, and stakeholders required to look at, for example, the plains of Lucca, I imagine it might be similar to, to even just the city of Madrid, based solely on the fact that it's just such a huge and diverse city. You know, I know that a big part of Madrid's work and momentum, really an overarching goal, was to bring shared mobility to more peripheral areas and outside of the kind of core of the city. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit, firstly, to why that was important for Madrid, and then also if you could reflect a bit on some of the challenges that were mentioned by our colleagues in Lucca, and to say whether any of that resonated with you in the kind of large city perspective.
As you may know, Madrid is a very well-connected city. It has a very dense network of public transport, but especially in the city center. So the first question was whether we want this shared mobility to be a competitor to public transport or to be a synergy with public transport. So what are these strategies that you have to implement to make sure that the role that shared mobility is playing is actually helping public transport rather than competing with it? And in this case, what role these new mobility services should play is more to increase the capillarity of the public transport system. And how we do this? Well, you do this outside of the city center, where the public transport infrastructure is more dispersed due to the geographical conditions, right? So this is the point where we want to really use these new mobility services to act as feeders of public transport services. So in this case, for instance, the analysis and the tools developed in Momentum help us to understand this difference and these key deployment strategies that will help to actually make sure that these new mobility services were acting the way we wanted. So we found that, for instance, the penetration of the use of shared mobility was higher in those areas which were not directly connected by a public transport line.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I really like the word synergy here. I think that that's making sure that all of your options work together, that we're not just employing, I think a big thing we talk about in CIVITAS is that we should be employing new mobility solutions because they help and not just because they're new and that's exciting. I mean, I think that there's still room to test new things, but ultimately we should be deploying stuff that is really synergistic, and works on multiple different fronts. And I'm wondering if you could tell me a bit about how you worked with those communities in the more peripheral area, the communities that you wanted to bring shared mobility services to.
So I would say that the core of this, of a successful integration of their voices, is actually to understand what are their worries and expectations, and make these modeling tools give an answer to them.
So if I may add, we first set a an optimal scenario of for instance, a deployment for a given size of a shared mobility service. And then we discuss with this community of practice, okay, what do you see here? What do you like? How will you move the deployment or the stations where the service is going to be provided? What will you modify? Okay, then when we modified this, we did some predictions, some modeling of what will be the impact of different options that we got from them. And then in a second session, we discuss, okay, this was the initial scenario, this was the modified scenarios, and these are the different indicators. And some of them some of the different proposals had a better outcome for certain indicators, but not for others. So we discuss it basically, okay, there is always trade-offs. So how do you feel with this or with this other scenario? And we did it both with neighborhoods and potential users, but also with the services providers.
That's interesting. You really hear the parallels to what Valentina was saying earlier about looking at a regional SUMP that was kind of idle for a while, starting with a document like that, and then bringing groups together to see how it can be pushed forward to meet a variety of needs. It really seems to be kind of parallel processes. And I actually think in general, given how very different Lucca and Madrid are as cities, I think it's very interesting that there's a lot of similarity in what you're discussing. And I think one of the things that we learn from CIVITAS projects is that there's value in cities of different profiles working together on the same topic and exchanging information and learning from each other. And I'd like to invite you to comment on that a little bit. Firstly, on any similarities or common challenges that you've heard from the other colleagues on the call, and also a little bit more generally speaking, why there's value for you in working with cities, even that are totally different from your own city.
I'm Pamela Salvatore of the municipality of Lucca, and about this topic, I want to say that I believe that despite the dimensional differences between our two cities, but also with other cities, there are problems and ideas to develop that current times require us to face in every city. I am referring to the sharing mobility services, to the traffic flows in general, but in particular related in our case, for example, to the transport of goods in the city center. And I think that both cities must take into account the limited resource of spaces and the need to make different needs coexist in the city. I found a lot of similarities in the speech of Oliva and Javier that I heard before. For example, I think that is very important, the focus about the strategical approach to a real, coordinated and rational policy about the mobility services. I think that it's also normal that different solutions and policies have to be taken into account for each cities because a solution that is good for Lucca, it's not the same solution good for Madrid, for example. But this is normal. We have to take into consideration, to take into account these differences. But differences, it's not a limit. I think that we have to stress this approach because Lucca could learn a lot of things from Madrid, and we can try to apply a different solution, but that have, for example, to the base the similar approach. Obviously, the economical resources of Lucca are quite proportional to the city dimension, but anyway, I think that the budget of Lucca has same limits that the budget of Madrid. So also this one is another issue to take into account, despite the differences of the cities.
Yeah, actually, I cannot agree more with Pamela. I think that something that is very, very important is that to find, as Pamela said, common approaches to these challenges, and to have the principles of urban mobility planning and management very, very clear. For instance, something that Pamela mentioned is that a principle should be how to manage these new mobility options in the case of Madrid, or how logistics work in the city, specifically in the urban cores, in our urban cores. For instance, having this kind of principles of, okay, let's find ways to protect the quality of these urban cores, and sharing these principles among all cities, as initiatives like CIVITAS try to promote, is very, very important.
As our guests can see, the sun is setting here in Freiburg. We're coming towards the end of our conversation. So before we actually log off, I'd like to invite you each to reflect a little bit on what's next for sustainable mobility rather, in your cities. If you look to sustainable mobility in the future, what would we see?
For Lucca, the participation in the Sun Plus project was a very important occasion to prepare and develop our working person to new approaches and to manage new tools to develop new policies. So we obviously want to continue the approach that Sun Plus learned us in these years. So we are, for example, trying to electrifying the entire bus fleet of our mobility transport services. We have a specific grant on this project, and I hope we can turn into a real this project by some years. At the moment in Lucca, we don't have sharing mobility services. This is a very important lack of services in Lucca. And in this sense, we are trying to develop integrated strategies of this kind of services, in particular related to our parking system, because in the city center we have not a lot of parking, especially for resident people. So we wanted to develop a dedicated policy to integrate the policy parking system with the public transport services, and with new to be implemented services in sharing services in the last mile mobility of people and goods. So this is our work for next years, and I think that thanks to the Sun Plus project, but also why not thanks to other projects that will come, we will try to implement this important challenge for our city.
That sounds great. Good luck. And it also sounds like you now have some other new contacts who can help advise on any rollout of shared mobility services. And what about in Madrid? What do you think is next for sustainable mobility in your city?
Well, first, I must say that we cannot speak strictly on behalf of the City Council, because we are just a company based in Madrid. But as we are based in Madrid and we work a lot with Madrid public authorities and transport operators, we stay tuned of these novelties. I know that the city has launched a new strategy for a safer and more sustainable urban mobility called Madrid 360. This is a long-term plan for improving aspects such as air quality and road safety for vulnerable users in the city. And also, it is important to know that Madrid was selected as one of the 7 Spanish cities taking part on the 100 neutral and smart cities mission of the European Union, and hopefully this will bring new opportunities to improve and to fund, which is important, new solutions for urban mobility. Also, the City Council is working on how to organize data around mobility. Actually, we at Nomon are helping them in, for instance, leveraging anonymized mobile network data for analyzing mobility patterns in the city. Besides these strategies, we at Nomon are going to participate in some research projects. I would like to mention just two for now. One is the conductor project, the Horizon Conductor project. This is focused on how to improve traffic management strategies in cities in regard of the deployment of autonomous vehicles, which is going to be one of the next revolutions we will see in the few years, in the next years. And the other project I would like to mention is the Horizon Soteria project, which actually focused on how to leverage data from connected vehicles to identify and improve road safety aspects, particularly those affecting vulnerable users such as pedestrians, cyclists, etc., in the city. Both projects will have case studies in Madrid during the next few years, and hopefully we will see new results and new opportunities for collaboration among different stakeholders.
Excellent. Thank you all so much, and good luck with all of the projects that you have in the pipeline. And thank you also for this really insightful discussion. I'm sure that our listeners will come away understanding a little bit more about not only how to foster collaboration and ensure that sustainable solutions reach peripheral areas, but also why that's so valuable and why it can really help with sustainable urban mobility in general. And we also hope that hearing from you will inspire other cities to act and to follow in your footsteps. If you are interested in learning more about this work, please visit civitas.eu, that is CIVITAS.eu, where a compilation publication featuring insights from Lucca, Madrid, but also from 3 other Civitas cities and projects will be published shortly. Links to all of these related resources and stories will be included in the episode description, so take a look to learn more. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time on Mobility Marvels.